They called it a necessary corrective measure. That was the Galactic Council's official statement after they sent a sterilization fleet into the Jaren Nebula, wiping out every breathing soul on our allies' home world in less than 3 hours. The Jarens were no threat. They were barely holding on to their own sector after years of internal famine. But they were our allies, not just politically, personally. We fought with them during the Hive incursion. Their blood soaked our trenches. We bled for them, died with them. And now they were gone, vaporized under the soft bureaucratic justification of galactic order. I remember sitting in that briefing room on Luna Base, watching the council's broadcast. Every delegate smug behind polished translations and vague diplomatic phrasing sat under the same banner of peace, the same banner that now reeked of genocide. My fists clenched, my jaw locked until it cracked. Admiral Thorne stood beside me, eyes sharp but unreadable. I wasn't just another soldier in the room that day. I was the official liaison to the Jaren Defense Wing. Their names, their culture, their war songs, they were etched into me. I'd eaten with their war priests. I'd buried their dead. I'd held a Jaren hatchling after her father was torn apart by Vrel beasts. And now those people, all of them, were dust, and the galaxy had already moved on. The council has overstepped, someone muttered. One of our diplomats, still too naive to realize this wasn't politics anymore. This was war. But they didn't say it. No one did. Not yet. That night I stood at the edge of the hangar watching dropships refuel. The silence of space beyond the bay doors was unbearable. It felt like the Jarens were screaming. In my head I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. All I saw were firestorms raining down on cities I once called second homes. All I heard were council delegates excusing it all in the name of balance. The bastards didn't even let us retrieve the bodies. Orbital sweeps, nothing left, not a bone, not a data core, not a stone. The next day, Earth's president delivered a statement to the council. Carefully worded, of course. Condemnation without consequence, stern language, a request for investigation. It made me sick. A week later, our ambassador to the council was found dead. Airlock malfunction, that's what the official report said. Malfunction. No one on Earth believed it, not in our command circles, certainly not me. That's when the tone changed. Not publicly, not yet. But behind secure doors, conversations started. Unofficial channels buzzed. Earth's Defense Command went silent for 2 full days. No logs, no briefings. Just silence. The kind you only get before a storm. Then came the order. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was 5 words in a coded message, sent only to 12 people across the solar system. I was one of them. Fire begins where words end. That was it. I knew then. We weren't filing complaints anymore. Earth was done talking. We were going to make them hurt. And I was going to help. The first thing I did was pull up every chart of council infrastructure. Relay satellites, supply stations, jump gates, every vital artery that let their empire breathe. I started highlighting weaknesses, choke points, blind spots, things I'd noticed over years of operations, but never thought I'd use. Now I knew they'd become the blueprint. For vengeance, we didn't have the biggest fleet in the galaxy, but we had the smartest. we didn't rely on mass, like the Droth, or ceremonial code like the Valethi. Earth fought dirty. We invented guerrilla warfare before half the galaxy even knew what deception meant. And now we were going to make the Galactic Council remember why they used to fear us. I stood on the deck of the Erebus as our fleet began to mobilize in total blackout. No communications, no broadcasts, just silent movement like a predator closing in. They thought we'd do nothing. They were wrong. They thought Earth still played by their rules. They were about to learn Earth doesn't talk after betrayal, it burns. They thought we'd hesitate. They always thought that about humans, that we were too young, too impulsive, that our morality would hold us back, that we'd debate and vote and protest while the stars bled around us. But they forgot one thing. We remember, and we never forgive. The Erebus sat in the darkness near the broken rim of the Serax's belt, forgotten region filled with dead rock and rogue comets. No civilian traffic, no patrols, perfect for hiding a fleet. Not a big one. Earth didn't have numbers, but we had teeth. Our stealth cruisers had been stripped of all diplomatic insignias. No more Earth banners, no friendly transponders, no ID, just matte black holes and silent engines, ghosts. And we were ready to haunt the Council. Admiral Thorne stood in the middle of the tactical bay, surrounded by the captains of Earth's shadow fleet, men and women hardened by 20 years of silence, backroom operations, and off-the-books warfare. These weren't the ceremonial faces Earth showed the galaxy. These were the real ones, the wolves behind the curtain. We strike first, Thorne said. His voice never rose above a low growl, but it cut deeper than any shout. We strike hard. We do not negotiate. We do not offer surrender. A captain raised a hand. Do we tell them who did it? Thorne turned to me. You want to answer that, Commander? I looked at the hologram between us. 12 jump gates, dozens of resource hubs, civilian ports, military stations, all council-owned, all vulnerable, different ways. No, I said, we don't say a thing. They all stared. If we do this right, I continued, they won't need us to sign the strike. They'll feel it in their bones. Silence fell, then Thorne nodded once. Commander Wren takes point, first. Strike group, 3 ships, minimal crew. Maximum fire. That was me, Wren. My father had died in orbit during the Hive War. My brother had bled out beside a Jaren convoy, my friends buried. Across a dozen cold moons, I didn't wear grief like a badge, I wore it like armor. I selected our target. Gathar 9, a communication nexus used by the Council's border fleets. It was unguarded, arrogant in its safety. They never thought anyone would hit a civilian relay station. But Gathar 9 coordinated 3 sectors. It was their voice, their eyes, and Earth was going to make them blind and deaf in one night. We launched under full stealth. The Erebus gave us clearance, then disappeared back into the belt. It was just me, the Strix, and 2 other attack cruisers, hunters. Wake and Black Fleet, all black, all heat shielded, no emissions. We slipped past the first satellites without a sound. Inside the Strix, I stood with my small crew. No uniforms, no names on the wall. Just 7 people who knew they might not come back. We didn't need speeches, we didn't need glory, we wanted revenge. As Gathar 9 came into view, a floating cathedral of light and laziness, I The order: kill the lights. Our ships powered down external signals. Artificial gravity lowered, engines went cold. We drifted, like space debris, right into their gut. The Council security wasn't just lazy. It was pathetic. They assumed their status would protect them, that fear of fines or sanctions kept attackers away, but Earth didn't care about sanctions anymore. When we reached 40 clicks, I activated the first override. We had Council encryption keys, old ones stolen from a defected Jaren. Techie years ago still worked there. Gates opened, their station allowed us in, and then we let hell loose. No warning, no alarms, no conversation. Strix launched plasma rounds directly into the communication core. The explosion turned night into day. Secondary blasts ruptured their power center. Hunter's wake tore through the life support systems. One sweep. Then silence. Black sleet dumped nano chaff into the emergency relays. No distress call ever made it out. We stayed only 8 minutes, just long enough to burn every circuit, silence every voice, and paint a message in the wreckage. Not words, not symbols. Just a simple broadcast, a silent recording of the Jaren homeworld burning. That was it. We left before the smoke cleared. No pursuit, no trace. Gethar 9 was dead, and the galaxy didn't even know it yet. The next 2 days were chaos. Council fleet scrambled when their orders stopped arriving. Colonies waited for instructions that never came. Confusion, panic, silence. Then came the rumors. Unconfirmed reports of a dark fleet seen near the Syraxis region, of massive strikes against unarmed installations, of a mysterious signal sent before the destruction. The Council denied everything publicly, but inside their inner chambers they were terrified. And Earth smiled in the dark. We hit again 4 days later, Darsun Station, where Council tax records were stored. We didn't just blow it up, we erased it. From orbit, no trace left, just fire and ash. Then Mureth Depot, where the Council stockpiled military food rations. Gone. Velnari fuel fields torched from underground. Took them months to realize how we did it. Every target we struck was vital. Not flashy, not dramatic, but crucial. We weren't just punishing them, we were starving their empire, piece by piece. And they couldn't say a word, because to admit it would be to admit Earth had declared war. And that scared them more than anything, because they knew what we were capable of. They remembered our history. When humans fight wars, we don't stop. Not until we bury the ones who started it. Back on the Erebus, I stood over a burning map of our next route. The heat from the hollow table made sweat run down my face. But I didn't wipe it. It felt good, like something human. Admiral Thorne stepped beside me. He didn't say anything at first, just watched the glowing trails of red, where we'd already hit. Then he asked, "You ever wonder how far this will go?" I nodded. "Every night." He grunted. "And your answer?" I looked at him. "As far as it needs to." He nodded slowly. "Good." Because I think Thorne had already decided there would be no turning back. Not now. Not after what they did. The Jarens weren't just an ally, they were a symbol, a promise Earth had made. And when they were murdered under Council order, that promise shattered. So now we were building a new one. In fire. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Council scrambled to hide the truth. They labeled the destruction of Gathar 9. An accident claimed Darson Station had suffered internal sabotage. But with every lie, their credibility cracked. And Earth just kept hitting small teams, targeted strikes, no communications, no faces, just death. From the void, other races started to whisper. Some saw the footage we leaked. Jaren, cities melting under Council ships, children screaming in infrared. It spread like wildfire, no matter how many filters the Council placed. And then the biggest leak dropped. One of our operatives, code-named Cairn, transmitted a Council order file signed by 3 High Lords, Operation Purge. Jaren elimination. Reason, refusal to amend genetic code to Council standards. The truth was out. They killed the Jarens not for rebellion, but because the Jarens refused to breed themselves into obedience. The whole galaxy saw it, and just like that, Earth wasn't alone. I remember the day we received a message from the Relic, a minor species, miners, mostly with no ships of their own. They sent us coordinates, Council depots, vulnerable ones. Thank you, their message said, for reminding the stars that justice still has teeth. We never replied. We just sent the coordinates to Black Fleet. The fire continued. But vengeance has a cost. On our 15th strike, the Strix was ambushed. Not by Council forces, but by mercenaries, hired killers paid Council gold, no flags, no rules. They hit us near the Varus Drift, 4 ships loaded with ion disruptors and boarding hooks, dirty, brutal work. We lost 2 crew members. Good men. One of them was a friend. He took a blade to the gut, covering the engine room. Bled out in silence. No last words. Just a nod. I buried him in orbit, no ceremony. Just a long silent drift into space, wrapped in metal and sorrow. And I promised him we would make them pay tenfold. The Council didn't go silent forever. They bled from the shadows for weeks, and we let them. But pain has a way of waking even the most arrogant monsters. When the High Lords began losing entire sectors of control, when the stars they once ruled flickered with unrest, they finally struck back. Not with declarations, not with fleets, but with something worse. They sent the Red Order, not official, not documented, not even acknowledged in their records. But every soldier in the galaxy knew them. Assassins, hunters, a Council creation. Denied in public and feared in private. We used to think they were a myth. Something whispered about in backwater bars and off-record black ops. We were wrong. The first time we knew they were real. They left us a message. It was burned into the hull of Hunters. Wake, one of the ships from my original strike group. We found it drifting near the edge of the Ireland Rift. Crew gone, engines frozen, no signs of battle, no scorch marks, just 5 words, seared into the side like a brand. Silence is not strength, Ren. My name. My call sign. No mistake. The Council had stopped pretending. They wanted me to know they were hunting. Now, that shook the fleet harder than any battle could. Fear's a poison, especially when it moves quietly. We pulled back, not because we were scared, but because we needed to think. A direct war with the Council's elite. That wasn't the plan. Our mission was precision, sabotage. Death without fingerprints, but now they wanted a name. So we gave them one. Thorne convened his inner circle aboard. The Erebus. The war table wasn't a hologram anymore. It was real metal bolted into the deck. Burned black from cigarette ends and spilled adrenaline stems. Nobody sat. We stood like men ready to carve something into the dark. They're baiting us, Thorne said, trying to force a mistake. They'll get one, I muttered. He looked at me, not angry, not disappointed. Just calm. You want revenge, I get that, but we're not God's reign. This isn't a holy war. No, I said, locking eyes with him. It's a funeral, one they started. I just want to make sure they get buried in the right order. He didn't argue. Just slid a data chip across the table. It showed Denvor Prime, one of the Council's core worlds, heavy atmosphere, civilian industrial world, supposedly neutral. No defense systems activated, no military designation. But we knew the truth. Deep under the factories and the smog-choked skies, Denvor Prime housed a vault, a storage site for Red Order. Dossiers, mission archives, personnel. Logs, names, coordinates, timelines. And we were going to steal it. I led the ground team. Not just because it was personal. Because I wanted to look them in the eyes, the people who pulled the trigger. On the Zarans, on Hunter's wake, on everything we'd lost. My boots hit the Denvar surface with a hard clang, dust kicking up in thick red clouds. The city around us was mechanical, ugly. Towers of smoke and rust covered in pipes and grease and decay. The Council dressed its cities like empires, but their truth was always rot. We moved fast, 6 men all silent. Black suits, high-frequency silencers. Optic cloaks. We found the vault under a false warehouse marked as oxygen recycling. Inside it was cleaner than I expected. White light, metal walls. High security. No alarms. We disabled those on entry. Cut the fiber links. Fried the AI. We moved through the lower halls like ghosts until we found the central archive. Guarded, not by soldiers, but by one of them. A Red Order agent. First time I'd seen one up close. He was taller than I expected. Pale. Scar across one eye. He didn't reach for a weapon. He just looked at me. Like he knew. You must be Ren, he said softly. I raised my rifle. He didn't flinch. You think this is vengeance, he continued, but it's just another war. One you won't survive. I didn't speak, I just pulled the trigger and he vanished. Not dodged, vanished, light bent. Cloaking tech way beyond anything Earth had. Then the room went red. Sirens blared. Doors slammed, we were trapped. The ambush hit in under a minute. 3 Red Order agents dropped from the ceiling, blades drawn, no guns. They didn't shoot. They wanted it close. Personal. One of my men, Bren, took a knife through the chest before he even screamed. I tackled his killer, cracked his neck against the wall. Another sliced through Varn's leg. He went down. Hard, screaming, blood spraying in arcs across the white walls. I snapped into full kill mode. No hesitation, no mercy. I fired point blank into the cloaked shimmer twice, and the body dropped with a wet thud. By the time it was over, only 3 of us were standing, and we were breathing fire. We tore through the vault doors with a portable sonic drill, hacking the core Console. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the data chip was in my hand, containing every red order location and mission report from the last 10 years. Names, bases, flight paths, all of it. We ran. One man bled out on the escape craft. Another lost a hand. I didn't care. I'd gotten what we came for. Now I was going to light the stars on fire with it. Back aboard the Erebus, we reviewed the files. The room was dead silent. Every screen flickered with red stamped files. Orders signed by the same council. Leaders who'd once sat on peace panels. Now we saw the rot behind the curtain. They'd assassinated diplomats, tortured defectors, poisoned entire settlements that resisted genetic compliance. And worst of all, they'd planned the Garen Purge 6 years in advance. That wasn't justice. That was genocide, cold and calculated. Burn them, Thorne said. Burn every single one of them. I looked down at the list. There were over 300 known Red Order bases scattered across Council territory. We wouldn't hit them all, but we'd hit enough. And we'd make sure every Council bastard with blood on their hands knew what it felt like to lose. We started with Sarat Moon, a medical outpost, secret, hidden under surface layers, staffed by Council scientists who performed body enhancement trials on captured species. They said it was research. We called it torture. We didn't ask questions, we just hit it. Orbital fire, no warning, no survivors. Then Felrek Station, a comms hub, masquerading as a trading post. The Red Order stored blackmail intel there. Audio files, black box confessions, bribes, leverage they used to keep neutral worlds quiet. We didn't just destroy it, we broadcasted it across every channel, every frequency. Secrets spilled into the stars. Council corruption laid bare. Suddenly, their allies weren't so loyal anymore. The Veilfi suspended trade. The Aran pulled back their embassies. Even the silent, cold-blooded Dreth Syndicate, who never took sides, sent out a neutral statement of strategic disengagement. The Council was cracking, and Earth kept swinging. After the fourth strike, black sleet went dark. No signal, no distress. Gone. We found fragments later, hull chunks, burned bones. Red Order signatures were all over the wreckage. They'd learned. They were adapting, just like us. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was a new war. One not just between Earth and the Council, but between the truth and the lie they called peace. We had started as a whisper in the dark. Now we were thunder. And we weren't done. Not by a long shot. The hardest part wasn't the killing. It was the silence after. There's something cold about orbital fire. 1 minute you're staring at a planet with lights, motion, life. The next, just smoke and silence. It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it just dies quietly, and then you go back to your ship. You sit, you breathe, and you wait for the next name on the list. We'd taken out 12 Red Order installations in 2 weeks. Fast, ruthless, unrelenting. But every hit made them smarter, more paranoid. Their movement slowed. They started pulling their assets inward, back to the core worlds. Back to Corellian Prime, the central jewel of the Council's empire. Untouchable, they believed. Impenetrable. They were wrong. Corellian Prime wasn't just a city. Planet, it was the heart. Council archives, political towers, Military commands, red order. Headquarters buried 10 levels below the surface. A world protected by 10 orbital defense rings and a fleet of warships that could tear our entire force apart. In minutes, it was suicide. But sometimes suicide is just war. Wearing the right face. And Earth was ready. It started with the call no one wanted to hear, the kind of message that hits you so hard you forget how to breathe. Erebus is gone. Those were the words, no preamble, no warning, just a transmission from one of our last recon drones bleeding static. We saw the footage. Erebus, Admiral Thorne's ship ambushed. In orbit above Bareth Shard, Council. Assassins cloaked in civilian transports, they got close then. Released subspace charges inside the hull. Erebus imploded before anyone even screamed. No survivors. Admiral Thorne was vaporized, and with him our command link. For 22 seconds the fleet was in chaos, no orders, no hierarchy, ships drifting, crew frozen. Then I stepped forward. Not because I wanted to, because nobody else would. The message I sent was simple. This ends on Corellian Prime. There were no cheers, no rally, just quiet nods. Every soul in our fleet knew the cost, but no one flinched. The plan was desperate, and that's what made it beautiful. They would never expect it because no one would ever be crazy enough to try it. We would split the fleet into 5 separate fronts, hitting every major Council stronghold surrounding Corellian Prime. False invasions, fake bombardments, massive distractions. And while they scrambled to stop us, I'd lead a micro force directly into the heart of Corellian, not to fight, to detonate. The ship we used was called Mournfall, Old Earth design, pre-Council era, stripped of all ID, armed with a singular payload, a thorium fusion core bomb, not a planet killer but enough to destroy every sub-level of the Red Order compound if we placed it right. I brought 4 people with me. Noah, my tactical chief, quiet, blunt, brilliant under pressure. Drake, explosives, ex-mercenary, smiled every time something exploded. Jaren, cyber warfare, young, twitchy, never stopped muttering. And Hale, sniper, no past, no future, just ice. None of them had family left, all had scores to settle, perfect for this mission. We breached orbit during the 4th diversion. A massive battle staged at Lithro's belt. Hundreds of drones faking a war. The Council sent 2/3 of their Corellian fleet to intercept. We slipped through the chaos, wrapped in stolen Council transponders, shields, running on black market energy. Scramblers. They never saw us. We landed in Sector 9C, the industrial underbelly of Corellian Prime. Smog thicker than concrete, towers rising like tombstones, no patrols down. They're just filth and rust. Perfect for ghosts like us. We moved fast, stealth suits engaged, no communications, only hand signals and the slow, steady drumbeat of death. Getting closer. It took us 7 hours to reach the outer doors of the Red Order complex, buried under a waste plant. Fitting. The entry was coded to a living Council agent, which we didn't have. So Drake improvised. We ambushed a courier vehicle, killed the driver, hauled his body back, scanned his neural pattern, and printed a biometric mimic. Door opened in 3 seconds. Inside, silence. No alarms. But I knew they were watching. The Red Order didn't need guards. They Had traps, psychological ones. As we moved through the black halls, messages flickered on the walls. Motion-triggered holograms. The Gerons begged. Erebus was just the beginning. You won't survive this. I felt Hale tense behind me. Let them talk, I muttered. They're scared. And they were. The Red Order had never been hunted before. They didn't know what it felt like to be the prey. We kept moving. Through hallways soaked in cold light. Past doors sealed with bone-coated locks. Past empty rooms with old bloodstains. Until we reached the vault. The heart of the monster. Thick doors. 3M of neutronium. Guarded by a sentry drone with a kill. Radius of 30 m. Garin whispered, "Give me 5 minutes." Drake set up a blast wall. Hale. Crouched, rifle aimed at the drones. Core. Noah covered the corridor. I stood still, staring at the vault. This was it. Inside were names, proof, secrets. Orders, the truth behind everything from the Geron purge to the assassination of neutral delegates. If we got the data out and survived, the council would crumble. Garin got the door open in 4 minutes. But then the alarm screamed, red loud. Everywhere they were waiting, not outside, inside. 4 Red Order agents dropped from the ceiling like shadows, no guns, all blades. The next 30 seconds were fire and blood. Noah got stabbed twice but shot one of them point blank. Drake tackled another and detonated. Micro-mine took them both out. Jaren screamed. Something sliced through his face. Hale gunned the killer down, but took a blade in the shoulder. I don't remember my fight, only the aftermath, standing over 3 corpses. Bleeding, heart pounding, but alive. Only 3 of us left now. Jaren was dead, Noah unconscious, Hale limping. Drake smiled. Let's give the bastards something to remember. We planted the bomb in the data vaults. Power core. Gave it a 10-minute timer. Not because we wanted to be heroic. Because 10 minutes was how long it would take to reach the upper comms tower and transmit the vault contents to Earth. Command. We couldn't carry the data out. So we'd burn the place down and send the truth across the stars. Let the galaxy see what the council really was. Those last 10 minutes were hell. We climbed a maintenance shaft through rising smoke and screams. Hale passed out once. I had to drag her. Drake took a hit from an auto turret and kept moving like it was a mosquito bite. We reached the comms tower with 45 seconds left. I jammed the chip into the console, hit transmit. The signal flared, bouncing off 6 old Earth relays still buried in deep space. We watched the progress bar crawl toward 100%, 88%, 92%, 97%. Complete. Drake turned to me. You ever wonder if they'll forgive us? I shook my head. I hope not. Then we ran. 5 seconds before the bomb blew. We didn't die. We should have. But Hale had triggered a gravity cable. On the way out, launched us clear into the waste chasm below the city. The blast wave hit seconds later. Everything above us shattered. The Red Order vault. Gone. Every secret exposed. The heart of the council. Burned. They tried to lie, of course, said it was a reactor leak, said we were terrorists, that Earth had gone rogue. But it was too late. The data was everywhere. Screens lit up across the stars. Images of the Gerons burned alive. Secret orders authorizing sterilization, assassinations, mind Control programs, genocide by bureaucracy. The galaxy didn't just turn against the council, they howled for blood. Civil wars erupted on 4 core worlds. 3 member races seceded within a month. The council was dying, and Earth had lit the match. Back in orbit, we reconnected with remnants of our fleet. Noah survived. Hale needed surgery but lived. Drake, still smiling. I stood on the deck of the Vigils, Blade, watching Corellian Prime smolder. Not with joy, with clarity. Revenge was never the goal. Justice wasn't even enough. What we did, we reminded the stars of one thing. That peace built on bones isn't peace. It's a countdown. And Earth always answers when the time runs out. You'd think burning the council's heart would be the end. It wasn't. It was the beginning of something worse. Corellian Prime was a smoldering corpse. The Red Order's vault was ash. The council's secrets were out. The galaxy had seen the truth, and the galaxy was angry. But anger is wild, unpredictable. It doesn't always turn into unity. Sometimes it turns into madness. Within a week of the Corellian transmission, everything unraveled. The Thuran Combine, longtime council, trade enforcers, declared neutrality. They seized council-owned stations in their sectors and armed their merchant fleets, not in support of Earth but because they smelled blood in the water. The Dreth Syndicate, notoriously quiet, launched silent strikes on council logistics hubs, wiping out supply chains, then offered to negotiate new shipping rights for a price. The Valethi, so-called champions of peace and balance, issued a single statement. We have upheld the lie for too long. We will no longer do so. Their ambassador pulled out of every joint council agreement in one day, and the rest, the weak, the scattered, the ones too small to fight, they panicked. Some begged Earth for protection, others armed themselves, expecting Earth to turn its guns next. It was chaos. And in the center of it all, we stood silent. Not heroes, not tyrants, just the spark. We regrouped on Acer Station, one of the last Earth-commanded outposts still running at full power. The Vigil's Blade docked under heavy guard. I stepped out with Drake and Hale, both still banged up but alive. The place felt different. Not just the silence in the corridors, but the way people looked at us. Some stared with awe, others with fear. We had become something else now, not soldiers, not rebels, symbols. And I hated it. Admiral Marduk greeted us, thorns. Replacement, clean-cut, hard-eyed, and too polished. He didn't shake my hand, just nodded and walked. Congratulations, he said coldly. You made Earth famous again. I stared at him. We didn't do it for applause. No, he replied, you did it for vengeance, which we weaponized. I knew that tone. The same voice politicians used before. They turned blood into policy. We were tools now, and Marduk was sharpening us for something else. He laid out the strategy, Earth ascendancy. That's what they were calling it. The council was collapsing, power vacuums everywhere. Earth's name burned into every screen. Had become a rallying cry, so Marduk's new doctrine was simple. Fill the void. He wanted to place Earth-aligned governments on liberated planets, set up trade hubs, build outposts, spread protection through firepower and diplomatic coercion. Humanity doesn't get this kind of chance twice, he said. We either rise or we fade back into the dirt. I asked him one question. And who leads it? He didn't blink. You, I laughed in his face, not out of pride, out of disbelief. I wasn't a leader, I was a killer. I had blown apart vaults, snapped necks, burned cities from orbit. And now they wanted me to wear a uniform and call it salvation. Drake was more blunt. You want Ren to wear a crown made of skulls and act like it's gold. Marduk didn't even flinch. Number, I want him to remind the galaxy, who kept the fire burning when everyone else ran. Hale, still wrapped in med gel, looked at me and said nothing. That silence was worse than any order. In the end, I agreed. Not because I believed in Earth ascendancy, but because I knew if I didn't control what came next, someone worse would. The kind of man who used phrases like necessary civilian containment and strategic resource recovery. The kind of man like Marduk, so I became the face, the war scarred commander who broke the council, the voice in a dozen broadcasts telling worlds you are no longer under their rule. I shook hands with Valethi senators. I sat in negotiation rooms with blood still under my nails. I walked through Jaren ruins alone and left nothing but silence. Everywhere we went, we installed governments, earth-backed, earth-armed. Some called it liberation. Others called it conquest. Both were right. But power, poisons, vast. It started small, a council archive, discovered on the edge of the valleys, cluster detailing covert deals between Earth's old politicians and the very monsters we burned. We were told to suppress it. Old news, they said, the people don't need confusion. I wanted to release it anyway. Marduk blocked me. You think this is about truth? He snapped. Truth is a tool. You either use it or you let someone else do it first. I felt sick, the same logic the council once used. But it didn't stop there. On Terra Lune, a mining colony that declared support for Earth, a resistance group refused to sign Earth's Reconstruction Pact. 3 days later, their main building suffered a mysterious reactor breach. Everyone inside dead. When I asked for a report, I was told no foul play detected. But I knew the script, I'd written it. They were using my tactics, my fear, my silence, and twisting it into policy. I confronted Marduk. You're becoming the thing we destroyed. He smiled. No, I'm becoming what the galaxy needs. You just don't like what that looks like when it's done right. I walked out, and I started planning. Not another war, a purge. Drake was the first I told. We sat in a dark chamber, no lights. Just one old bottle of Jaren blackmeat. They're using the fire wrong, I said. Drake shrugged. You light it, someone else always finds a way to cook with it. I want to end it. He raised an eyebrow. You mean Marduk? I nodded. And anyone else turning Earth into a prettier version of the council. He grinned. I'm in. I gathered what was left of the shad. Fleet, the old hands, the real ones. Not Marduk's new stooges. We called ourselves Ashfall because we weren't heroes, we were what comes after. The fire, we hit Earth outposts that had gone rogue, exposed black market dealings, released files on forced labor, programs disguised as volunteer reconstruction. We targeted Earth-aligned governors who used power like a whip. And then we came for Marduk. He was stationed on Aaron's Gate, the central hub of Earth's new dominion. A fortress orbiting what used to be a neutral trade planet we didn't announce. Ourselves, we didn't warn him. We crashed his ship into the stations. Then we walked in through fire. Marduk tried to run. Hale caught him with a bullet in the leg. I stood over him as he bled on his marble floor, surrounded by banners with my name on them. You stole my war, I said. He sneered. You gave it away. Drake placed a blade on the back of his neck. Marduk spat, kill me and someone worse takes my place. I looked around the room, then I looked at Hale, and I gave the nod. The blade fell. We didn't take power, we scattered it. Ashfall became legend, a shadow fleet. Watching the Watchers. We left a message on every planet we passed, no thrones, no chains, only fire. When needed. Some worlds thrived, some fell into chaos, but we no longer ruled them. We let them decide what peace meant, even if it cost us everything. Years later I walk alone, no medals, no titles, just a name whispered like a curse in council ruins and freedom squares alike. They say I ended an empire, they say saved humanity, they say I betrayed my own kind. They're all right. Because the truth is simple. We didn't fight to be kings, we fought because someone had to. And sometimes fire is the only language monsters understand. It's been 6 years since I killed Marduk. 6 years since Ashfall scattered the throne Earth tried to build from scorched bones. People still whisper about those days, about the fire, the purge, the vengeance. But no one talks about what came after. What peace really looks like when the smoke clears and the flags come down. Because here's the truth. Peace isn't glory, it's silence, and silence can rot you from the inside. I live on Veltron 4 now. A cold, ugly rock in a dying system that no one fights over. No cities, no politics, just wind, rock, and the occasional drunken miner who thinks I'm someone else. They don't recognize me, not anymore. I grew out the beard, my left arm's artificial now, thanks to that ambush on Oria's gate. My spine shot. My lungs scream on every breath in the cold. Good. Pain keeps me honest. Drake said that once, right before he blew himself up on Kelser Station to take out a council warlord who resurfaced. He was right. I wake up before sunrise every day, not for any noble reason, just habit. Old soldiers don't sleep well. Not when their ghosts line up every morning waiting to be acknowledged. Some mornings I see Thorn's face, or Garen's half his jaw missing. Sometimes it's the Garen hatchling I held once before the council fire turned her world into ash. They don't speak, they just watch like they're waiting for something. A verdict. One day I get a visitor. First in months. I hear the shuttle before I see it, no markings, fast, surgical descent. Not a miner. I walk out of the shack I call a home. Shotgun slung over my shoulder out of habit. The ramp lowers. She steps out, tall, lean, dark coat. No rank, but I know the look in her eyes. Soldier. Real one. She walks up to me and says, Commander Wren. I stare at her. Don't use that name. She doesn't flinch. You're needed. I laugh. No, I'm avoided, that's the whole point. She holds out a chip. Someone's building again. But not from the ashes, they're using the bones. I take the chip. Let it load into my ocular implant. Data scrolls, names, locations, fleets. Something new. Or maybe something old wearing a new mask. The Covenant of Purity. Never heard of them. But their insignia is made of two things: a burning council seal and the earth insignia. Merged, twisted, perverted. My gut clenches. Where'd this come from? I ask. The Valathi, she replies. They've been watching them grow. Quietly, carefully and fast. I squint at her. And you? I represent no one. Then why are you here? She hesitates, then says, because I watched my father die on Sarat Moon, and I believed in what you did. I thought the fire meant something. She steps closer. But now someone else is using your fire to build their empire, and the galaxy is too scared to stop them. I look at the chip again, and I feel it, that old pull in my chest, not glory, not rage, but duty. The kind you never get to retire from. 3 days later, I leave Veltrin for. Don't pack, don't say goodbye. No one to say it to. She pilots us out of the system in silence. Her name's Kira, doesn't offer a last name. That's fine. Some names are better buried. We reach Darius Voida A later. One of the neutral sectors no one cared about. During the council collapse, used to be a trade hub. Now, ghost station. Except it's not empty. We scan activity, ships not big ones, but fast, modified armored black. Market builds, but too uniform to be random pirates. They're organized. Kira whispers, that's where the Covenant stages their outer patrols. I ask, any infiltrators? None survived, I nod, that's about to change. We land silent. Stealth insertion, just like the old days. The air inside the station tastes like copper and sweat. We move corridor by corridor, cloaked. Quiet. And then I hear it, a speech echoing from the central chamber. We slip closer, and what I see freezes my blood. Hundreds of people, different species. Some in Earth exo armor, others modified council uniforms, all staring at a single figure on the dais, a man. Human, young. Too young to remember the war, but his words. They betrayed us, he says. Earth lit the stars on fire and then abandoned us to the dark. The council fell, but nothing better rose. We've waited long enough. He raises a fist. And now we rebuild. Not with compromise, not with weakness, but with purity. The crowd roars. Behind him hangs a banner, half council, half earth, stitched together like a goddamn Frankenstein monster. Kira whispers, that's their prophet. Name's Calvin. I watch him speak. His tone is mine. Years ago, his fire is mine, but his direction is everything we fought against. He isn't trying to free anyone. He wants to dominate. We exfil that night, no shots fired, no alarms. But I know what's coming, and I know what I have to do. I send the word. Old channels. Ashful ghosts not all answer. Some are dead, some buried in exile deeper than I ever went. But a few voices crackle through the void. One message. They're using your name, Ran. Time to take it back. We hit them hard 2 weeks later, not their fleet, their ideology. We intercept a propaganda ship, broadcasting purity, manifestos to border worlds. We hijack the signal, and I speak, no helmet, no title, just the scarred, half-dead version of the man they tried to turn into a symbol. If you're hearing this, you've already lost something. Maybe your home, maybe your family, maybe your place in the stars. And maybe you think someone like him will give it back to you. I pause, then lean in. But Calvin doesn't want to save you. He wants to use you the same way the Council did, the same way Earth tried. I know because I watched it happen. I burned for it. I stare into the lens. If you follow him, you're not choosing strength. You're choosing slavery, just dressed new armor. Ask yourself one thing. When was the last time someone gave you power without asking you to bleed for them first? The feed cuts. Then we destroy the transmitter. Over the next month, we hit 12 of their outposts, expose 5 of their leaders, hijack 16 of their propaganda lines. We don't kill unless forced. We don't conquer, we remind. Remind the galaxy that tyranny doesn't always wear alien skin. Sometimes it looks like your own reflection. But then they hit back hard. Ambush near Veth Corridor, 3 Ashfall. Ships lost. Kira shot, shoulder wound, we limp away. And I realize they're not just growing. They're recruiting from the children of our fire. Those born after the war. Raised on half-truths and burning questions, they want meaning, and Calvin gives it to them with my name on the banner. It all comes full circle, doesn't it? We burned the old empire. Now a new one rises from its bones. My bones. And the only way to stop it is to burn it again. Even if this time I don't come back. We lost Ridgefall Station 2 days after the Veth ambush. It wasn't just a base. It was one of the last neutral refueling points in the dead line, a corridor of unclaimed space, where no one held authority and everyone held a weapon. Ashfall had kept it quiet. Low profile, no flags, no comms, no propaganda, just food, fuel, rest, and silence. It was the kind of place where tired men went to stop shaking and remember how to breathe. Calvin didn't care. His people hit it without warning. 3 stealth cruisers, 2 shock teams, no demands, no messages. Just a single signature burned into the hangar floor before they left. Rand's peace is weakness. I stood over the ashes 3 hours. Later, the wind smelled like charred steel and melted plastic. Bodies had been vaporized, only shadows remained, burned into the walls. Outlines of people caught in the blast wave. One of them looked like a child. Maybe a technician. Maybe a refugee. Didn't matter. They were gone. And Calvin had sent his message loud and clear. We buried the fragments in silent, no graves, no speeches, just dust and a crater. Kira leaned against the burnt remains of a calm tower, blood leaking from her shoulder bandage. She hadn't said much since the attack. Not since she watched 5 of her friends get atomized by Calvin's proxy fleet. You okay? I asked. She didn't look at me. Does it matter? No, I said. But I ask anyway. She turned. Her eyes were red, not from crying, from rage. This was supposed to be over, Ren. You broke the monsters. You burned the gods. Why are there still flames? Because fire doesn't go out, I thought. It spreads. We returned to Ashfall Base 4, a hidden supply point in the rings of Darva. It was quiet, isolated. Nobody knew about it except me, Hale, and the 2 surviving crews we had left. And that's when the plan came together. Not a strategy, a kill order. We weren't going to chip away at Calvin anymore. No more chasing signals, no more hijacking broadcasts. We were going to cut off the head. Calvin's flagship was called the Justifier, built from salvaged Council tech, Earth plasma rigs, and stolen Dreth alloy. It was a monstrosity. Not elegant like a Council cruiser, not rugged like an Earth destroyer. Something in between, twisted, patched, almost angry in its design. It didn't orbit a world, it commanded one. Arcanos Sigma used to be a dead moon. Now it served as his command nexus, headquarters of the Covenant of Purity. Fortified, shielded, surrounded by orbiting kill stations and a dozen warships, and he was there. We confirmed it through deep slice surveillance footage, heat signatures, voice patterns. Calvin was central, always visible, always preaching from his marble tower, like a prophet in polished armor. He wasn't hiding, he was daring us. And I was ready to accept. Ashfall gathered what was left of itself. One main battle cruiser, the Wraith 5. Escort ships, 4 stealth pods, 15. Soldiers, 2 snipers, 3 techs, 1 medic, and me. Broken spine, artificial arm, half a lung that whined when I coughed. It didn't matter, I'd survived. Worse. So had they. Drake was dead, Jaren too. Thorn long gone. Hale missing in action, taken 2 years ago during a failed op on Halen's Verge. I hadn't heard from her since. Maybe she was alive. Maybe not. But I still carried her tags because I knew this might be the last fight. And if it was, we'd go out the way we came in. No banners, no mercy. Just fire. We launched at 300 Earth time. Kira piloted. I sat beside her, staring at the tactical screen. Calvin's fleet had spread out. Arrogance or overconfidence? Probably both. His ships patrolled far, assuming no one would dare attack his seat of power. They didn't count on desperation. Desperation fights dirty. Desperation doesn't care about odds. Desperation makes men into weapons. We didn't hit Arcanos Sigma directly. That would have been suicide. We went under. Through the moon's fault line, an old mining shaft from before Calvin occupied the system. Kira had mapped it, a tight squeeze. Crushed most sensor readings. We slid in under blackout, 2 stealth pods first, loaded with scramblers and jamming relays. They disabled 2 orbital eyes before the Covenant even noticed. By the time we breached the atmosphere, the Wraith was already mid-dive. We punched through the lower cloud layer like a meteor and dropped to hell. EMP bombs first, knocked out local relays. Shock troopers next hit the outer barracks before anyone raised a shield. Then I touched down, gun in hand, eyes fixed on Calvin's tower. They fought like zealots, not soldiers, not trained, but fanatical, fueled by propaganda and fear. Some of them shouted my name in hatred. Others whispered it like they weren't sure if I was real. To them I was myth, the ghost of a dead fire, the relic of an old war they never saw. Now I was flesh and bone, and they didn't know what to do with me. They died confused. Kira took a bullet to the leg during the main breach. I dragged her into a side hall and wrapped it with thermal gauze. You shouldn't be here, she hissed. I grunted, neither should you. She smiled through the pain. You really going to kill him? I didn't answer, because she already knew. We stormed the tower, 5 of us left by the time we reached the top. 2 snipers, 1 tech, Kira on my side, me In front, Calvin waited in a throne room of polished black glass, huge, cold, designed to impress. He stood alone. No guards, no guns, just him and his custom-built armor, smooth, white, lined with gold in the earth, crest warped into some holy symbol. He turned slowly as we entered and smiled. I wondered when the old god would return. I raised my rifle. You're not worth monologues. I'm worth truth, he said, and I'm your legacy. I stepped forward. Number, you're my mistake. He didn't move. You burned the council. He said calmly, you turned humanity into legend, and then what? You ran off to some rock and let the galaxy rot. I didn't create the covenant out of ambition. I created it out of need. You abandoned the fire. I rekindled it. Kira growled behind me, with executions and mind control sermons. Calvin ignored her. His eyes never left mine. I don't want to fight you, Ren. I want you to see. He motioned to a hollow display behind him. Dozens of systems, order, control, compliance. He showed refugee fleets given homes, food stations protected from pirates, settlements turned into cities. You call me a tyrant, he whispered, but I gave peace. I lowered my rifle and said, no, you gave permission. He blinked. For what? For monsters to return, wearing better clothes. I fired right into his chest. The armor cracked. He stumbled back, not dead but bleeding. I wanted your blessing, he rasped. I stepped forward. You got my judgment. Then I fired again, right between the eyes. Calvin dropped without a sound. The rest was cleanup. We uploaded a mass transmission. Every record Calvin had hidden, every brainwash protocol, every suppressed execution log, every innocent buried. The name of purity. We didn't broadcast vengeance. We broadcast truth, and then we left. Ashfall was broken, but breathing. Kira survived. The tech died in orbit. During evac, I lost 2 ribs in a hallway explosion and don't remember the medevac. I woke up on an old converted freighter. Days later, wrapped in gauze and regret. Kira sat beside me, silent. She finally spoke. It's over. I closed my eyes. No. I opened them again. But maybe now something better can begin. They don't speak my name much anymore. Not on the outer colonies, not in the old Earth sectors. Only in the places where silence still rules, where power waits to grow new. Masks. They say I died on Arcano Sigma. They say I was never real. They say Ren was a myth built to justify fire. Maybe they're right. Because I'm not a hero, not a leader. Not even a soldier anymore, just a man who watched the galaxy burn twice and still walked through the smoke. I never meant to survive at all. That's the honest part no one writes into the records, if there are even records left. They'll carve your name into some wall, twist your story into something tidy and noble. But no one ever talks about what happens when the fire's done burning and you're the one left standing in the ash. You become a ghost, not because you died, but because the world moves on without you. After Arcano Sigma fell and Calvin's covenant collapsed, we expected chaos. It never came. Instead, something worse did: stillness. No more mass purges, no more rebellions, no screaming propaganda fleets lighting up the stars, just fractured systems and leaders too tired to shout, too weary to fight, and too scarred to trust again. Kira called it the ghost hour of history. You ever seen a soldier keep watch after a battle that never comes? She asked once, sitting under the broken sky of Ferralis. That's what the galaxy feels like now. Everyone's waiting for something that already happened. I understood. I felt it too, every day ashfall didn't disband, not really. But it scattered quietly. Some of them went home, if home still existed. Others joined relief fleets. Few vanished into the deep systems, where even light dies slow. Kira stayed a while, then left, said she was going to work with the Valethi on rebuilding neutral trade networks. Something boring, she told me. Smiling, something peaceful. I didn't argue, I just watched her leave. Didn't even say goodbye, didn't need to. Some things are understood in silence. Me. I went back to the dirt, found a moon called Cetus 3. Middle of nowhere, no political value. No ore, just sky and stone and wind. I built a shelter near the ridge, same tools, same hands, same scarred arm. Simple. Just like the Jarans taught me once. Lifetime ago, before the council burned their songs into dust. Some days I plant things in the soil, knowing they won't grow. The frost eats most of it. But I keep planting. Habit, I guess. Hope, maybe. Though I'd never admit that out loud. One day, an old man from the settlement 4 clicks down came by. Name was Relin. Weathered face worn. Boots, talked like he chewed stone for breakfast. Name's Ren, right? He asked, squinting through dust. I didn't answer, he grunted. Didn't think you'd be so normal. I stared at him. Disappointed, he smiled. Never, just figured someone who broke empires would have more to say. I said everything I had to with fire. Relin nodded. Yeah. And now there's no one left to burn. He stayed a while. We didn't talk politics or war. Just dirt, storms, crops that won't take root. It was strange, good, human, but it didn't last. Nothing ever does. 2 years after Arcano Sigma, someone tried to kill me. Not in a dramatic way, no speech, no long vendetta, just a knife in the dark. Settlement kid, maybe 16. Face pale, hands shaking. I caught his wrist before the blade got to my throat. Asked him why. His answer, because you let it all happen. I didn't fight back, just took the knife, gave him food, told him to go home, didn't report it, didn't tell. Relin didn't tell anyone. Because he wasn't wrong, let me tell you. Something no one teaches. Or the barracks, or the fancy tactical halls they rebuild every time another hero rises. There's no such thing as clean victory. You don't end wars, you pause them until someone else finds a reason to pick up the sword you buried. Calvin proved that. Marduk before him, even Thorn in his own way. And me. I gave them the blueprint, I burned the first one. But I left the matchbox behind. Sometimes I wonder what Hale would have said if she was still around. She always saw through things. Especially me. Your biggest weakness, she once said, is thinking fire is a final answer. It's not, it's a tool and tools get stolen. She was right. And I should have known better, but I didn't. And now I live on a rock that doesn't care if I once shouted at the stars. Maybe that's fair, maybe that's justice. Or maybe it's just time doing what time does, erasing men too dangerous to remember but too loud to forget. One morning I woke up to a voice. Outside. Not a knife, not a ghost, a child. Girl, maybe 12. She stood there holding a cracked datapad wrapped in cloth. Didn't say her name. Didn't need to. Are you the man who stopped the council? She asked, eyes wide. I looked at her. At the way she clutched the pad like it was sacred. No, I said, but you're Ren. I used to be. She blinked. I read about you in a file. It said you did bad things. I nodded. I did. Why? Because worse things were being done to people who couldn't fight back. She thought for a long time, then handed me the datapad. I copied some of your messages, she said, the old ones from when you warned people. I turned it on. My voice came back to me in low static. Older than I remembered. Harsh, raw. I hated the sound of it. The child asked, do you think someone else will try again? Like that Calvin man? I didn't lie. Yes. What do we do when they do? I looked out at the horizon, wind cutting across broken stone, and I said, you speak, you fight, and if no one listens, you light the fire again. But you burn clean. She came back sometimes with others. Not to worship, not to kneel, to ask. They brought stories, reports, evidence of new factions, new movements, new flags. They didn't want me to lead. They wanted me to teach, so I did. Not in speeches, not in orders, but in truth. No crowns, no chains, no saviors, only choices. And the reminder that silence, too, is a weapon, one that kills slow. I'm dying now, not from war, just time. Old bones, bad lungs, an arm that sparks when it rains. I write this from the same shack I built with my own hands. Not to inspire, not to confess, just to record. Because history isn't shaped by heroes. It's shaped by the broken, bleeding men who refuse to let monsters sleep easy. If you're reading this, don't make me a martyr. Don't carve my name. Remember what I did. But more importantly, remember why, because someday someone will stand in front of you again, shining, promising order, claiming purity, and when they do, don't talk. Don't wait, burn them.